Many years ago, while I was filming some dragonflies, I saw out of the corner of my eye a great crested grebe with a chick riding on its back. Now, I'd never seen this before, so I asked a Twitcher friend of mine, what's the chance of seeing them with the chicks on the nest? Not a chance, mate, he said. And I thought, I don't know whether he's right there, because he's perhaps not the sort of guy that hangs around to see such things, so I checked it out myself. And of course that started my infatuation with the grebe. So here are the grebe files based entirely on my personal observations. This is a pair of grebes at Summerlees Reserve, trying to outdo each other. First thought this was an eel he was eating, but it certainly is a huge breakfast. This was fairly early in the morning, about 7:30. And after that breakfast, they began a courtship display. Now this display normally lasts, I don't know, 20-30 seconds in my experience, but this one went on for a full 2 minutes. So it does give us a good chance to get a good look at the bird. You can see that they're in full spring, summer breeding condition. The plume, which of course did nearly lead to their extinction in this country, so persecuted in Victorian times, and those were used for ladies' hats, of all things. From the black crown down to the chestnut and black tippets, which are fully extended for this display, which is basically a mimicking display. You can't really tell which is the male and female with Great Crested Grebes. Well, I can't anyway. You'd think the one on the right hand side would be the male, as it seems to be slightly bigger in the head. The plume seems to be slightly bigger as well, but based on what I've seen, that could easily be the female as well. We'll see a little bit later that it is very confusing. If you saw one grebe on its own, you certainly wouldn't be able to say for sure which was which. Now, as this display is getting towards the end, after this they disappeared round the corner for a couple of minutes and then returned later to show us the weed display. And of course the next stage in the process is to begin to build a suitable nest or a suitable platform for the mating. You can see the sort of clumsiness of the grebe here. It's got massive feet, very agile though, as it slides down the front. Now you can see what I mean about the distinguishing between the sexes, because the one that appears to be the male in this case is certainly the smaller bird, and that's nice footwork shown there by the male. They mated 3 times altogether, but were disturbed by this coot who seemed to think that it was his nest. Now the third time that something strange happens, so I've left this piece unedited so we can see clearly, as the female definitely looks like the bigger bird in this occasion. She stays on the nest for a little bit. And the male, well, at least we assume it's the male as he took the male position, just swims back to the nest. Female comes off the nest. And the male proceeds to get back onto the nest and assumes, to all intents and purposes, the female position. Nothing happened, of course. It was just a normal bit of tidying up around the nest, and eventually they both go off to do some more fishing. And now we're off to an idyllic setting here, a little offshoot of the River Nairn, the Bedford Road in Northampton, Riverside. And this pair made a beautiful nest in the middle of this sort of little pond off the main river where the Northampton Rowing Club practice. Because the male and the female take full part in the incubation, the rearing of the chicks. You can see clearly here when this one gets back onto the nest that there's 3-4 eggs in there. The eggs are white when newly laid, but after being sat on by the grebes that have been in the river, they eventually turn a sort of light brown colour. Now if you see a grebe sitting on a nest and it's doing this, you know that there's already a chick. You can see just inside there. The chicks have this lovely striped effect. And of course this is a main part of its diet in the early stages, is the feathers or the down from the adult bird. Plenty of protein, of course. I found with this pair of grebes that each egg hatched out a day after the previous one. So over the course of 4 days we have 4 chicks hatching out. The chicks always look to me like little turtles flapping around. They always seem to manage to get back safely after being thrown off the back of the adult leaving the nest and get back onto the other adult that's taking the new position. This is day 2, so we have 2 chicks, and now we're on day 3. We have 3 chicks. The adults often appear not to want the chicks to get back inside the wing feathers. Chicks usually get their own way though. So we have just 1 egg left to incubate. Nice bit of more feather feeding for the other 3 chicks. Before going off to wash down from having those chicks sitting on you for an hour or 2. Very important to keep those feathers in pristine condition. Look at those large feet. While I'm filming this, I'm always thinking, oh, there's going to be an accident any minute, but they always clumsily manage to avoid accidents. See, one got squashed there by that bugfoot. But the chicks have got great resilience, of course. So we can see there that that egg is very nearly hatched now. Not long to go. Now a small fish this time instead of a feather, which is a lot more satisfying for that youngster. At last, our fourth little chick, and that's just a question of the struggle up into the protection of the adult. But alas, this one is going the wrong way and unfortunately ends up in the water. It's struggling to get back. But it struggles, unfortunately, taking it the wrong way. When I'm filming in these situations, you sort of think, oh, shall I jump in there and rescue? But then you're going to disturb all the other chicks and the adults. You just can't interfere in these situations. My mum always used to say, oh, isn't nature cruel? But this is the only way of natural selection, I suppose, that chick just wasn't meant to make it. And although the adults seem to be very matter of fact about it, the fact that the chick couldn't manage to get that short way into the protection of the adult means that it's not going to survive. They check around to see, yes, it's definitely hatched, no, it's definitely not there. A little sort of slight look of confusion. They're just checking now to see what's happened to the fourth one. But eventually they accept that that fourth chick didn't make it, and they prepare themselves to go off to the river. And life goes on, of course. And now we go off to Staunton's Pits. And this is the next stage in the chick's development. This pair at Staunton's Pits have got 4 chicks. And in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks they start to grow very big, especially when the adult brings fish like this back to them, which proves too big for the little, and so Dad eats it instead. But there we go. A few days later, those chicks are pretty well mature now, not far off full adult size. And these 2 adults are preparing to have another brood, which is not unusual as far as I've seen. I'm in a natural hide here, which basically means you're standing behind a bush. There's plenty of company for the grebes down at Staunton's. Sometimes not company that you want. The grebes have to be constantly vigilant of anyone threatening, like the gulls or the terns, the herons in particular. By this time the male is a little bit wary of the younger males in his family, because he's got other things on his mind. Not in front of the children, please, but this occasion everyone seems a little bit shocked, but that's how life goes on. So successfully a second brood for this pair of grebes, which unfortunately got reduced to 2 very quickly. Probably got predated by either the gulls or the heron, and in this case you can see that the adult is particularly wary of something going on and ducks rather quickly out of the way of a heron that comes just a little bit too close for comfort. But maybe the heron was more interested in that little grebe out there. These youngsters are reaching probably the limit of where the adult can actually stay afloat, and this one seems to be really struggling and rather lopsided. But they'll take a free ride for as long as they can, especially when you can still eat your mum's feathers. And it's not long until they're out there on their own, looking after themselves, preening, swimming through the big lake on your own, having a chill out session in the rain, or off with your brothers and sisters. And of course there's the rehearsals for next year's courting rituals, and a chance to try those wings out. Look a little bit like a black and white Union Jack to me, but very, very sleek. And so life with the grebes carries on for another season.